All right, so in this video, we're gonna get this delete buttons working. Now, what we want to happen after we go here and search for whoever we're searching here, and we find that person, we want to be able to click on delete button and remove that person from our spreadsheet. The way we're gonna do that is by using their customer ID. So if I click on this delete for this line here, we should be deleting customer number 65, which is this customer IDs here in the back end. So since we need to now interact with our spreadsheet and delete lines out of it, we need a server-side function again. So I'm going to go back and go to our server-side functions. So far we have this one, and create another function. So this is what I'm calling this function, delete by ID. So we need to first get the spreadsheet. So I'm going to just copy and paste some of these lines here. It's still the same spreadsheet, still the same worksheet. Now in that worksheet, we're gonna need a data range. So let's also copy this line, but I don't need to return this yet. So I'm gonna save this in a variable. I'm gonna call it cost IDs. Now the first step we need to do here, we need to make sure we find which row we need to delete this customer from. So that means I need to search in this first column and figure out which row the person or the ID, in this case I'm searching at, is. So that means I just need the data from this first column. I don't need to get all three columns to search. So let's do that. So I'm going to go here, and again, this will just be the same, only this one will be just one column instead of three columns. Now this is going to return an array of arrays, which will look like this. So I want to be able to search in this using index of, and index of only works with a single dimensional array. So we have this array of arrays that's not going to work. So I want to take this and convert it to one dimensional array. So I'm going to take this right in here and just map it to a new array. And for each row in that array, we're going to do an arrow function here. And we're going to return the value from the first column because there is only one column. And that should convert what used to be this to this. So for me, my customer IDs in my spreadsheet are all numbers. And it could be sometimes when you have things that are looking like numbers, but they're text too, right? These are actually numbers. So I don't want to have problems with this later on, so that when I search for a number, it finds that it's not a number, so it's text, so there's no match. So to avoid all of that, while I'm doing this conversion, I'm going to just convert whatever I have in there to string. And since I'm not going to be using dates for IDs, this should be fine. So I'll do toString. So now we should be looking at something like this. And maybe while we're at it, we'll convert it to lowercase too, just in case we decide we're going to use something else other than a number so that it's not case sensitive. Now, in case of numbers, that's not going to make any difference. All right, now because this is a new array, now after all this transformation, I should be able to now run index of over this to find the position. So for the time being, let's just create a variable here. We'll call it ID. And I'll make it, let's see, 19. So now if I wanted to search for that, I would pass that in here to find the position. And what this is going to give us, it's going to give us the position in the array. So for example, if it was the first one, it's going to be searching here because this is the range we're pulling, starting from the second row. If it found it as a first one, it would give us 0. So it starts the first one 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for example, if we search for ID 12, we're going to do 0, 1, 2, 3. It's going to give us 3. But the row number is actually 5 because we have a header on top and then our rows are not starting from 0. So we have this 2 off from what it actually is. So to handle that, let's first just save this in a variable again. That would be position. Let's do index, so we know that's a 0 index. Now I need this to be converted to a row number. So basically, remember, the difference was 2. So if I wanted to get the row number, I would say this. So I would say, let's just add 2 to whatever position we find. However, I want to make sure that there was something found before I add this 2. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add a condition. And I'm going to say if this position index is equal to -1, so -1 is when there was no item found in our array. If that's the case, I'm going to set the row number to 0, and I'll explain you why I'm doing 0 here. Otherwise, I'm going to set it to this, which will be the actual row number. Now, the reason I'm doing 0 here is because in my next line, I'm going to delete that row from our data. And the way I'll do it, I'll take the worksheet and do delete row, and it's going to ask us for the row number, which is going to be this. Now, what's going to happen with this, if we find something and if it says it's in row 4, then it's going to pass the row 4 here and it's going to delete the row 4. But if it doesn't find anything, we're going to end up with row 0, and there is no row 0. So when it tries to delete that row, it's going to get an error. So that's why I'm using 0 to get an error in case there is a problem. So similar to how I don't want this to be sensitive to type, like a number or text or case, I also don't want this ID to be sensitive to that. So when I'm passing this ID, I'm going to do toString to lowercase for that as well. So this should now give us the option to run this function, and hopefully it will delete the customer number 19, which is this Cheryl. So let's go and run and see what happens. So as you can see, that customer was deleted. Very good. Now we want to test this with a number as well. So let's also do this customer number 21, Maria. So 21 was deleted, as you can see too. So this works. Now we're not going to use it like this. We're going to pass that ID here, and we're going to delete this line out of here. And I'm going to delete this too. So now we finally have a function that deletes a row using an ID. So now we'll need to basically call that function with appropriate ID from our user form. So the ID is going to be, if we have this search and we go into search and search for, let's say, David, and we want to delete David from this. When we click delete, we want to send this 28 to that function to delete that person. Now, to make my life easy, what I'm going to do when I'm building this search results, I'm going to add data attribute to this delete button with that person's ID so we can grab that attribute later on and send it over. So let's go back and find where we do this. So these are the search results. See, we have that whole customer ID situation. Now I want to add it to that button. So I'm going to go to our template, and I want to be able to target this button. So I need to give it some sort of class. So now we have this class on this delete button. We should be able to use that to ID the button. So we'll go back to our script where we do all of this, and we're going to add a line here. And that's that class, delete button. So what we want to do with this delete button, we want to add a data attribute with that customer's ID. So I'm going to take that delete button, and I'll do it right here because the ID is the first column. So we'll do R0. So I'm going to do data set dot, and I'm going to call that data attribute customer ID. And that would be that same R0. Save this. So with this change, what should happen now, if I go back, close this and reload, go to search, and search for, let's say, Eric, See, this is ID 25. If I right click on this delete button and inspect, see it has this data customer ID attribute that says 25. And if I check for this Eric, then we have 134. So the reason we need that is now when we click on this button, we should be able to immediately from that button grab that data attribute and know which customer needs to be deleted. So let's do that. So I'm going to create a function here. Now this one on top here, this was our search function. Now we're going to do another function, which is our delete function. So in this function, we're going to need the ID of the customer that needs to be deleted. Now, to be able to get that, we need to get that from the button that was clicked. So let's assign this function to a click event. So we need to do it using this method again, because that app is what's going to be available. For the same reason we did input this way. So, but this is not going to be input, this is going to be click. And we'll call this click event handler, and we'll basically just copy this and paste it below and call this click event handler. So now when you click on anything inside of that app, it's going to run this click event handler, which is this function, and then we'll check if whatever was clicked on matches some criteria. So in our case, we need to make sure it was one of the delete buttons that was clicked. And if you remember, we gave our delete buttons a class. And that class was delete button. So because it's a class, it's going to be dot, not a pound key. So if it matches this, we're going to know that this was one of our delete buttons. So we want to run that delete customer function. This. And we are going to send that event to that delete customer function so we can grab some information out of it. So with that, we'll go to our delete customer and accept that E as an event. So now we're going to be able to use this to grab information. So remember, we need to figure out what's the ID of our customer, and we can now do eTarget to get the actual element that was clicked, which will be the button. And on that button, we're going to have this dataset customer ID attribute, which will give us the ID of the customer. So now once we have the ID of that customer, we should be able to now run that backend function to delete that customer with that ID. So I'm going to do Google script run again. Let me just copy and paste from previous ones. And the function on our backend was delete by ID. And the ID we're going to pass to it is going to be that customer ID. So for now, I'm going to pass a callback function here, and then we'll see why we need that. But for the time being, let's test what we have and see if this works. So I'm going to save this, go back and reload. Let's try to search somebody we can see in the background. Let's do Michael here. Number 20, see, line 10. I'm going to click on this delete button. Let's see what happens. So if you pay attention in the background, Michael is gone, even though we still have that person here in our user interface, because our user interface doesn't update with this information. So what I want to do now, I want to make sure that after this delete was successful, I also delete this line from here, from our search results, because it's annoying that we have it here. So we need to do this after that was successful. So that means when we get to this success handler, that's where we know this went through. Now what we're going to do, we just want to grab the whole row in here and delete it. Now, the way we need to ID the row, we need to go give it some sort of ID. Let's go back here, and the row will be this tr. Let's give it some sort of class. So we're not going to give it an ID for the reason that this is going to repeat for each one of those customers. So we're going to call this result box. That's a good class name, I guess. Now I can use that class name to find that tr and delete it. And the way we can do that, we can go back to this and we can take that target. And for this, we're going to have this method closest. And what it does, it finds the first parent with that selector. And our selector is going to be, remember that class result box. So this is going to travel from that delete button up in this code. This is the button we're clicking on. It's going to go to this TD. It's going to check, does this have that class? No. Then it's going to go another one above, this tr. Does it have that? Yes. So then it's going to grab this element. So this way, when we find that element, we can simply just remove that element from the DOM. So with this, we should take care of that problem that it stays on the screen. Let's see what happens. Let's again see somebody in the background. I'm going to do Donna this time. There it is. See customer number 2. So I'm going to click delete. So you see how it got deleted here. And after that, we deleted it here in this results as well. So that works. There's a delay and we may need to do some loading thing for this to be nicer. I'm going to get to all this type of stuff by the end when we got all the functionality working. But as of this moment, what I do want to add here is some sort of confirmation. Right now, as soon as we click on this delete button, this line is gone. So if we accidentally click on one of these delete buttons, that's it. The line is gone, right? Instead, I want to have this. When I click on this delete, we get like confirm and cancel option. So we can click on confirm and delete it and cancel and not delete it. So essentially, this delete button is really going to be the confirm button. So I'm going to go back to our code and change this text that says delete to confirm. What I'm going to do, I want this to be kind of in the same line altogether. Let's go to Bootstrap and get something that sits with 2 buttons on the same line. Button group would probably be that. See, there it is. We have like 3 buttons. They're all on the same line. So I'm going to take this, go back to that. And instead of having this confirm button in this TD, let's actually keep that TD below and then we'll delete it. Let's make another one here. Inside of this TD, I'm going to paste that code from Bootstrap. Now we're not going to need 3 buttons. Let's remove this basic example thing. We don't need that. Now again, we're not going to need 3 buttons. We're going to need 2 buttons. So buttons I want to use are these buttons. So let's just copy this one we already have. So that will be our confirmation button. And I just need basically another button here. I don't need 3, just 2. Which will be basically the button that actually says delete but doesn't delete. It just shows this other button. Let's remove this line. So what I want to do, I want to make sure that we assign a class to this other button. I'm going to call this before delete. That will be the class for this. Save. Let's just take a look and see what this looks like. So see, we have this delete and we have this confirm. And we don't want this confirm to be displayed by default. It should be hidden, which will do. But for now, I also want to change this confirm to like red or something and this delete to look like confirm. So I'll take this confirm button, this outline dark. We're going to do it for this button. And for this, we'll do danger. And that should make it red, I think. Here we go. So now let's hide this confirm button by default. So I'm going to add a class to this, the none, that's Bootstrap class to hide something and also kind of remove from the DOM in the position. At least CSS wise. So if I go back now and click search, I search, see we have delete button, there's no confirm. And if I click on delete, nothing is going to happen because the actual delete button is the confirm button that's currently hidden. What I want this delete button to do, I want it to unhide the confirm button so we can actually delete it. So let's assign an event listener to that button that we called before delete button. So that's going to be all here because that's going to be a click event. So anything that's going to be click, we all handle it here now at this point inside of this app. And when we click on that button, we don't want to run this delete customer. We want to run a different function that says display confirmation delete, I guess, something like that. And again, we're going to pass that E to this. Now let's go and create this function. I'm going to put it next to this delete customer someplace. So what do we want to happen when we click on that button? We want to unhide this. So the way we're going to unhide this is by removing this d_none out of here. So we need to find this button. And the way we're going to do that, we'll go here, we'll take this e_target, which will be the button that was clicked on, which in this case is going to be that delete button that should show the confirm button. And for this, we're going to have this property previous element sibling. And what that means is that because we're clicking on this button, the previous element on the same level inside of the same parent is going to be this other button, which is the confirmation button. There's also like next, which would be the next button. So if you wanted to detect if somebody clicks on confirm, let's do something with delete, that would be next instead of previous here. But for us, previous should basically get the other one. And for this, we want to remove from the class list that class d_none. Now, in addition to doing that, what I need to happen, when I click on this delete button, see it brings this confirm. Now I want to change this delete to cancel so we can click cancel and get back to what it was before. So this should now say cancel, not delete. So we'll take our target element and set the text content to cancel. So this is what should happen when we click on the delete button. It should show this confirm and change this to cancel. Now, what is going to happen when we click on that same button, which is now going to just say cancel again, it should do the opposite. So add the display none and replace what should be canceled to delete. Which means we have to figure out which case is this. So there are a bunch of different ways of doing this. I think I'm going to use data attribute for this, even though I could just grab this cancel and use it. But I'm just going to go back and add an attribute to our delete button. So this delete button, by default, will do a data attribute. We'll do data button state. So by default, the state will be delete, lowercase. And when we click on it, we'll change the state to cancel. So let's also make sure we change this now to cancel as well in our code. So I'm going to go back to this and say that eTarget dataset, what did I call that? Button state. So it's going to be in camel case, button state, like this. So button state should be cancel. So initially that was delete. We are now going to change it to cancel. And what we could do, we could just put this inside of an if statement and basically check if the state is delete. Then we're going to know we need to do all of this. Otherwise, we need to do the opposite. So I'm going to grab all of this, paste it. Otherwise, we're going to find the other one. Instead of removing, we're going to add display none. Instead of setting it to cancel, we're going to set it to delete. and the state is also going to be changed to delete, like this. So I think that should be enough to handle this entire situation with our confirmation. Let's save this, go back and check. Again, don't forget to reload these things. Something is wrong. Syntax error. Okay. Oh, this should be camel case. No negative signs and dot. I don't know how I got that in there. Okay, good. Over there too. Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. Now we have confirm and delete. If I click cancel, that should just hide it. If I click delete, that goes to this. Cancel, that hides this. That's pretty nice. Let's try this on something we can see in the background. Again, test this. So let's do this. Julia Hansen. I can see that person in the background right here. Line 27. Well, customer 27, not line. But let's click delete and click confirm. And Julia is gone. Let's also do something with two names and pick one. So I'm going to do John. See, we have this John right here, line 22. That's 38. If I click delete, confirm, that person is gone. And if I click on this 41, see, that's David Johnson. If I click cancel, David should stay. Good. So we have a confirmation now. This works pretty well. So the next step is going to be to make this edit to work. So we want to be able to click on this edit and get to a form where we can change that person's name, last name, or telephone number. And that's going to be the next video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.